Okay, it's 9 a.m. We're going to call to order the special meeting on the budget, June 2nd, 2021, or June 3rd, 2021.
Second, Mr.
Oh,
Mayor.
okay. Second at 2021. It's got 3 o'clock on here, so I thought it was the meeting from yesterday. But
Oh,
it's at,
shoot. I'm sorry.
yeah, no problem. It's at 9 a.m. So it's the 234th session of the 10th Council. Roll call, Mr. Doyle.
Carter. Miller. Petula.
Petula's here, present from Pontiac, Michigan, attending remotely.
Shramsky.
Attending remotely from Pontiac, Michigan.
Taylor Burks. Waterman.
Patrice Waterman, City of Pontiac, Oakland County.
Williams.
Present attending remotely from the greatest city in the world, Pontiac, Michigan. I believe Miller is here also. So if you can call her one more time.
Miller.
She's muted. Okay, so let's have a motion to excuse Pro Tem Carter and Councilwoman Doris Taylor Burke and Councilwoman Miller until she chimes in.
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Garland, I'm sorry, I'm here.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on with my phone today with this system. It sucks anyway. But this is Councilwoman Gloria Miller, City of Pontiac.
Okay, so you to excuse just Pro Tem Carter and Councilwoman Doris Taylor Burke.
Mhm.
Okay, roll call.
Miller.
Yes.
Petula.
Yes.
Shramsky.
Yes.
Waterman.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
Okay. All right. First, we have the 50th District Court, Mr. Carrington.
Yes, good morning. And I was on the phone with the court administrator, Ms. Ward. She's having problems getting in. The link that we used was not allowing her in, and I didn't have another link for her to get in and be pulled in onto the panel. So she's trying to get in as we speak.
Okay. So while we're waiting on her, we'll go to the next budget item, which is the mayor's budget. Is she here?
She's not, but if we could get Ms. Ward is trying to link in right now.
No, I understand that. We'll definitely, when she's there, we'll recognize her, but I don't want to waste time while we're doing it. So if we can skip through to item number 3, which is the city council's budget, so we can get that out of the way while we're waiting on Ms. Ward.
She's going to need either to be allowed in as a panelist. I think that's the only link I have for her, and that's not working for her, or she's going to have provided another link.
Okay, if you can text the clerk her number, he can send her a link. And so while we're doing that, we'll go through the city council budget.
Okay, let me just relay that message to Ms. Ward, please. Okay, thank you. Garland, she's going to, Lynette Ward's going to reach out to you to get that cleared up. So we'll move on to the council's budget. Let's get through here.
Okay. Does anybody have questions on the council's budget so far?
Mr. President,
Yep, go ahead, Councilwoman Water.
if I might. I know in the front we have where we removed from the, was it financial analyst? I would like to put in, instead of financial analyst, a liaison for city council.
I think we should do both. And the reason I say that is, as you know, we haven't had a forensic audit done. And we really don't have anybody from the council for Mr. Carrington to talk to on financial matters. And as you know, that we're going to have at least 2 new council members because me and you are retiring. And so I think that we need to give them as much help as possible to make sure that they can have some consistency. We've sat on the finance committee for almost 12 years now. And so some of the stuff we've been able to track, but I think that they're going to need some additional help as they come in to really make that happen. And I also want to point out, Councilwoman Waterman, we've been under budget for the last 5 years, and all they do is take that money and put it in the general fund. So
Okay, I'm good.
okay, you got anything else? I just wanted to jump in on that part.
Okay. Okay, since we've been under budget and we still, we can use that legal services that we have in there on 101-880-4000. That can be, we can pay for the financial analyst that we're talking about.
Yeah, like I said, so
Okay.
yeah, we
fine.
can. What I'm proposing, because they got us booked in here again for Jamarco Mullins and Horton. They're proposing $70,000. So I guess we need to talk about it when we get to their budget. But one of the things that I do want to point out while we're going through this budget is we put that money in for animal control that was not utilized. And so just want to look at that part. Okay, we have Miss Ward here, so we're going to go. As soon as she gets in, we'll go back to her budget. What else you got, Councilwoman Waterman, on the city council budget?
Okay, I think everything else we got is in great shape. If we just we could bring those 2 in, and what is it? I'm looking at, where is that thing at? Neighborhood, I think it was neighborhood. Help me, Attorney Sharp. Where is that at? I think I seen.
Community, you mean the district projects, the 101,
Yes.
808,
Yeah,
101.
there we go. Yeah, okay. We need to expend that money on different things we need to do as it relates to our districts. So that's it for me, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. President, if I may just really quickly, since you touched on the animal control, if you recall, it has been stated, I think, that they put animal control in the budget, but it's not under council. So if that is your council's wish to keep it under council, then you need to make sure that you allocate that money under council, because I think it was shifted to code enforcement.
Yeah, my thought is it should be under council until it's implemented, and then the future council can decide if it's working and can go under code enforcement or whatever. But I think it needs to be under council until they put it into action, because we had a whole year where they didn't do anything with it.
Just making you aware that it's not there for the next fiscal year. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Okay. Ms. Ward, are you in?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. So we're going to go back up to the court, 50th District Court's budget. And so you had the floor.
Good morning to everyone. And I hope everybody had a good holiday. In looking at the budget, Mr. Carrington and I have kind of touched bases here and there, but we haven't really had a chance to go through everything. But I've expressed my concerns to him, and he has indicated some changes to occur. The first concern I have is with the salaries and wages. Again, we currently have 7.5 positions unfilled. 2 of them are new positions. And with my calculations, we would be in the right position if we had the same number that we had in the 1920 budget, which is the first column of the report that
You mean the 2020 budget?
1920, the very first column that I have on the sheet that I'm looking at.
I think she's referring, yes,
You mean-
you guys are saying the same thing, the fiscal year 2019, 2020.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So you want the amended number or do you want the original number? Ms. Ward?
The amended number.
Okay, so that 1,497,568.
Yes.
Okay.
And to that point, Council President, and discussing this with Ms. Ward, I did commit to making sure we tie what we have on the personnel. There were a number of vacancies that were over there currently at the court. I think a couple may have, been for the entire fiscal year, or most of this fiscal year. I know some positions may not have been filled due to COVID. So we have committed to working with her and getting the numbers tied into their staffing levels, as well as where they are from a salary standpoint on each of the positions, or where they expect to be for next fiscal year.
And I would also request the same number. We have 2 departments, the 136 department and the 151. And I would request the same number for 151 that's on the 1920 amended budget.
Okay, Mr. President, can I ask Ms. Ward, what page would that be on in our budget book, Ms. Ward? I see we have 54 where we got the 136, but where's the 151 and the amount that you're speaking of?
I don't have any pages, but I think if you go down about 2 pages, it'll go to the Department 151, court probation.
Right, court probation.
I see
Patrice, the numbers are 331, 22022.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lynette, I'm sorry. What was the end of the account number? The 2761551.
702-000.
Right. Okay. And you want that amended number as well too.
Correct.
Okay.
What's the total number that you're asking for, Ms. Ward? Ms. Ward?
If I could have just a moment, I didn't actually add those up.
331,022. That's the amended.
331. Say it again, Councilwoman Miller.
331,022 and $22.
022. Okay, thank you.
Now, did you want the total of those 2 numbers?
Please.
$1,828,590.
Gotcha. Thank you.
We have also discussed the situation with the retirees as far as medical. Our retirees under the union contract are entitled to retiree insurance. One of the ladies retired was not getting what the contract entitles her to. We went to arbitration. We lost in arbitration. And the ruling was that contractually we're committed to paying back. So what happens every month is she gets her check. I think it's close to $1,000 that comes out now. And then she gets the $400 benefit that's been added into her pension. We take her numbers, her total number, and take out the $400. So if she's got if it's $900, $1,000, and she has the 400, then we reimburse her that $600 per month. And that would be account number 276-136-716-001.
Yeah, we're on page 53 and 54, Councilwoman White.
Right. I got it.
Ms. Ward,
Okay.
Yes.
is that why there's nothing in there for 2020, 2021? I was a little confused about how come there wasn't anything there, and then there's the 369, 861 put in for the 21 budget.
We've been pulling it from other professional services or the contractual services.
Mr. President, if I might ask her a question, please.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you're saying that this is a contractual issue that the city has to comply with. This does not go under like all the other retirees through the general employees retirement fund.
Well, she is getting the same as the other retirees, but they were entitled to fully paid. So the part that she has to pay out of her pocket is what we have to reimburse her.
So that's a make contract then?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, that's where I have to get some understanding. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else got questions for Ms. Ward?
Yes, I do. Good morning, Ms. Ward. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Is there anything else that you see about your budget that you have any concerns about, or are you pretty much okay?
Mr. Carrington and I spoke about the 401 contribution. It appears to be a typo on that one. It's, I think it runs around $9,900 a year and is at $930. So he's been made aware of that.
Okay.
And in our expenses, account 276-136-999-277. It's a transfer out to 277. And what this was, at one point in time when MIDC first became functional, the city has to pay the portion that would normally be paid for indigent representation. There was a 3-year average back years and years ago.
Okay.
Because the judiciary has to be independent from MIDC, this amount of money should not be coming out of our budget. It should be coming out of the funding unit's budget.
Mr. Carrington, do you have Ms. Lynette got a concern with that?
Yeah, so you know, what Ms. Ward is referring to is the local match on that MIDC grant.
Right.
And the point that she raises, certainly we want to make sure we're accounting for it correctly, and to whatever extent we need to adjust that, we'll certainly do that. But as she articulated, this is revolving around the local component for the MIDC grant, and we just have to make sure that the accounting for this is consistent with what we're required to do. But that reflects all of everything that's coming out of that account is specifically for the MIDC grant and the local component of the MIDC grant.
I'm going to assume you're going to work on that before we get the budget all settled.
We will. We'll get that cleared up, and make sure just to make sure that the accounting is consistent with what we're required to be doing.
Definitely, because you're taking from the court and it shouldn't be so. Okay, Ms. Ward, if you don't have any more, I guess I'm done. And if you want to share anything else with the budget?
No.
Mr. President, some concerns as it relates to the budget.
Yes, go ahead, Councilwoman Ward.
Okay. Ms. Ward, I know in years that the state has been talking about decreasing the judges, and with the passing of the Honorable Preston Thomas, how is that working? Will you now be with 3 judges and a magistrate, or will it just be 3 judges?
The judges, the bench is looking into having a magistrate.
Okay.
Right now, we have a visiting judge that we're paying for that comes in, I think, two full days or 2 half days. I can't remember. 2 full days. I know it was 3 half days at one point, so I'm not sure right now what it is. But we do have a person coming in that is helping out with the civil cases. But the judges are actively in discussion about a magistrate.
I knew that was on the table, but I know that was something that the state had been talking about, bringing us down to 3 judges. So I just wanted to inquire how that's working. Also, what else was my other concern?
Magistrate.
I heard on the news, I guess it might have been yesterday, where I think Detroit is going to continue to implement Zoom where it relates to civil infractions and landlord tenants. Would the 50th District Court plan on still doing that? And would that be a cost savings for you all to continue to do that?
It's a little more time consuming for a clerk. Generally, someone has to operate the Zoom, and we've kept our court officers to a very minimum. So if one of them happens to be out, one of the supervisors has to grab it, or one of the clerks. It works really well for some things, and I know that it is the intention of the court to make as much use as possible with the remote. People tend to show up more. They're more comfortable in their own space, not too worried about being dragged out and taken to jail. There are a lot of things in the judiciary that are probably going to change rapidly this year. They have instituted the new laws, the expungement laws, the laws that deal with, they changed a lot of what used to be misdemeanors to civil infractions. We can't, if a person doesn't show up, we can't automatically issue a bench warrant. We have to take a couple of days, 48 hours actually, and come back to that file again. So we're handling the files a little more. So I don't see any immediate decrease in what we're doing.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have questions for Ms. Ward? I do. If we can talk about Ms. Ward, is there any capital outlay or improvements that they're planning with this budget for the court?
I haven't heard of one.
Okay, because as you know, the court needs a lot of work. So, Mr. Carrington, has there been an assessment done of the court, and where is that in our budget book? So we can make sure that there's money allocated to do that.
Yeah, Council President, I'm not fully aware of what assessments have been done or the latest timing of any assessments that have been done. I'll need to get with our staff, our DPW team, and get that information.
Okay.
I know there's some things here that are very, very old. We have repeated problems with the toilets. There were new toilets made, put in for the public with the last, with the improvement over with the HVAC system. The employee toilets, especially the ones on the first floor, are very, very old. We kind of stop up a little bit more often than we'd like to, and I really, again, have to thank everybody for the carpet. It lifted the spirits of the employees here. They really appreciate it, and I definitely appreciate it.
Okay. So, Mr. Carrington, when you fix her numbers, if you can get with Miss Ward and find out, and get with DPW and find out how much those capital improvements would be, because I don't see any planned in this budget. If you look at what they have under furnitures and fixtures and building improvements, I don't see anything that would really specify upgrades to the courthouse. And the plan is to do substantial upgrades to City Hall and to the sheriff's station. It doesn't make sense not to do anything to the courthouse. I would prefer they moved all together, but I understand that's not going to happen before I leave. So if we can get an accurate cost on what their upgrades, especially their basic needs, will look like, so they can get taken care of.
Okay, I will get with Ms. Ward and get a list of those items and work with our DPW team to cost those out.
Okay, I don't have anything else for you, Ms. Ward. Does anybody else have questions for Ms. Ward?
Only, Lynette, if you need anything, just give me a call, please.
Okay. I just want to thank everybody for the consideration for the budget. If anybody has any questions at any time, I think I almost live here sometimes in this office, so feel free to give me a call. Thank you all and have a great day.
Okay,
thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
All right, next on the agenda, Mr. Carrington, is the mayor's budget. Is she here?
I do not see her.
Can you give her a call? Because she was slated for 9:30. It's 9:29.
Okay, give me 1 second, please.
Mr. President, how long we gonna wait on her?
Well, to be exact, she's supposed to be at 10 o'clock, not 9:30.
Okay. Well,
It's 10 o'clock.
But I think so.
Well, let's go out then.
Yeah, so, okay. The next one we have, other than the mayor, is code enforcement. So
They probably ain't here either.
well, I mean, they should be in the building. Everybody, this is office time for them. We the only part-time people here. So
Real, I mean.
so
you would never know it, Mr. President.
yeah, listen, I understand. I'm just saying between 9 and 5, people should be available.
Mr. President, let's give honesty to where it belongs. Code enforcement is out in the road most of the day. They're not in the office.
Okay.
Mr. President, do you at this time want to work on some proposed dates for the adjustments to the budget? Now, I think I mentioned yesterday, next week I'm out at the Clerks Institute. So I don't know if you want to have these budget hearings continue starting the week of the 14th. Normally I give you a list of all the adjustments that you've made. It's going to take a little time because I'm going to have to review the tapes to get the list. It's been like a little bit harder to follow than normally, so I will have to look at.
Yeah, I think we probably need to have a meeting on Tuesday with Ms. Granderson, because I don't think we've recommended too many adjustments in this budget, because this budget has been all over the place. So we've got a book, we've got some sheets, we've got some other stuff. And so I think we probably need to have just a meeting to go through and look at what we possibly want to change after everybody's presented. And then maybe you can have that for us when you come back on the 14th, but having the conversation on the 8th, I think we'll at least get the council better familiar with the budget, because we've just had these back-to-back hearings and listened to the departments, but I don't think we've talked about what adjustments really needed to be made in each department.
Okay. So then there's really no need for me then to review the tapes that you like. I noticed.
Yeah, I think you do. I need to review. I'm sorry, Mr. President. Okay. I need to review, because us going through this budget, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. It's some things that need to be done, and we need to be able to really sit and go through this thing. So the 8th is not going. I'm gonna start probably tomorrow going through some stuff, but I think when he comes back, for all of us to be able to review some of those tapes, and starting maybe on the 14th, where we can really dive in and do what needs to be done, because especially, I mean, when we're talking about DPW and different things, and you have various, Ms. Ward has to get with the finance director to do some things. There were some issues that we asked from the sheriff's department. I don't believe we received that information as of yet. So it's a lot of things that needs to be put on the table for us to be able to look at.
Yeah, well, what I was. Yeah, go ahead, Attorney Sharp.
No, I was just going to say, I think. Go ahead. Think that you just want to kind of approach it, and it's like working smart, and you don't want to do like overly just attack it. Like, you need to have like an approach. And I think that again, yes, when you go back as a whole, then you need to make your proposed changes, but everybody kind of needs to know what potentially has been discussed and go back and review their notes and so forth, because I mean, that's how you've done it in the past.
So what I've done it in the past.
You know what? I mean, this is where I'm at. Why can't we look at the old budget that we had last year and compare it to each department that we currently have, Mr. President, as you had mentioned, which I thought was a great idea, and tweak it and do a little more stuff and see what needs to be done, because most of all these items, as you well know, are over budgeted. Did not come before the council, which is something, an elephant in the room that no one really is talking about. And so I'm not inclined to give much more money to anything, because it wasn't done. Most of these accounts are way over budget. It did not meet. Some it's in engineering has been taken out. As you mentioned about the animal control, yes, we're going to leave it in council, because if they were going to do anything with it, they would have did it in the last year. All this is political. You got to. I know we don't talk about it, but it has to come into play about this budget. What's going on here? It is a budget that I'm sure any analyst will look at and say, "Oh my God, everything is over budgeted and went over," but it didn't come before us.
Well, this is my thought on it. We need to have. I know Mr. Carrington created a book with some changes that are there. The problem that I have is the book numbers are different than the personnel numbers I've got and some other things. So even with the clerk reviewing on the 14th, the budget has to be passed before the end of the fiscal year. So I just want to keep that in mind when we're scheduling out how much time it's going to take to do this. But maybe we can get updated book with the changes and then meet on the 14th if that's going to work.
I think the clerk's cheat sheet has always helped before. So, Mr. Clerk, I'm not sure where you are with that, but that's what really gave the guidance to what you're suggesting, Mr. President, in terms of the changes that were made. I mean, Mr. Clerk actually tracked those changes, and then you discussed them and you deliberated on those changes that were discussed.
Right.
Or the things that were of interest,
Right. But in the past, Attorney Sharp, we haven't had as many different numbers as we've had now. And so that's the issue. I've got 15 different sheets of paper in front of me, and none of the numbers are the same. So I don't know.
If you remember last year, that was an issue last year. Remember when we kept saying these numbers are not the same on the various documents that they gave?
Right.
That
but
was
Mr.
the same
Williams
thing.
was going in, changing it as we were going through. I'm just saying we haven't made those recommendations, but I'm with the general body. But in the interim, in the 2 weeks, I think we need to get updated budget book that is well put together with what the actual numbers that they're going to be using are. So then when the clerk does give us the cheat sheet, we can look at apples and apples. And if it needs to be a correction, it can be corrected.
Right, because we have to have, this budget does not have to be passed until at least June the 25th. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk?
Right. It's 1 week before the beginning of the new fiscal year, which would be.
So if we go through our notes, get that book, I think scheduling anything the week through the week of the 14th, I think that's going to give us ample time, and the clerk can give us our cheat sheet. We can go through our notes, because as I stated, I have a lot of notes in here that I want to go through, and I think we will be in ample timing to pass this budget. But and that's just my recommendation.
So, Mr. President, if I may, so before I leave next week for the Clerks Institute, I'll review the tapes, go by departments, like I normally list the items that came up that need to be changed, share that with the council. If there's anything that any council member wants added to that list that I possibly may have missed or something like that, and it can be distributed to the whole council. Now, I think Councilwoman Miller mentioned something about last year's budget. Do you want last year's budget? Because I do have last year's budget document that I can share.
Great.
Yes, if you can get it. Yes.
Yep.
That'd be good.
Yep. If you can give a council copy and a binder to each council person, that'll be great.
And then if Mr. Carrington, when you prepare, he separated the budget by departments, but the one that was separated by departments didn't have page numbers. So if he could actually add page numbers to
Yeah,
that
and
document.
I'll make sure that that.
It'll be, a lot
you know
easier.
about the second one, Mr. Clerk?
Yep.
Yep. And that was an oversight on
And
mine.
then, Mr. Carrington, are you going to do the revised ordinance and give it to the clerk?
And what I would like to do is just, at the completion of the hearings, just to, I'll speak with you and Mr. Doyle just to compare the information that has been provided and try and get that, into a form that is kind of consistent with what what we think will help continue to move the process along. So, certainly commit to doing that.
Mr. Clerk,
Yes.
can I ask, because I have a copy of what I believe is my old budget last year. It is numerous pages. Can you print these and put them in our mailboxes, please?
Yes. I think that's what the council president asked for. Sure. No problem.
Thank you.
And then council, sorry, go ahead, council.
Just one other thing, when we're speaking of, Attorney Sharp just brought it up about our ordinance. In looking in this ordinance, I know last year I specifically stated as it reflects about landlords and being fined. It's not in this ordinance. I want that in the ordinance.
In the ordinance or in the budget?
In our budget, it was supposed to have been in here, the fines that I spoke of, them being fined when they evict people and they put that furniture out there on the curbs, on the easement. There was a fine and it's not in here.
It will go under the schedule.
Isn't that listed with the fines and the fees?
Yes, ma'am. It's not listed in here.
Because the discussion last year was for a different fee for that. It was quite an extensive discussion about Councilwoman Waterman's proposal for that, and they agreed to put it in the schedule of fees. It's not in there for that.
Okay. Yeah, because there is an ordinance that says they have to furnish a dumpster.
Okay.
Yeah,
but they don't.
But they don't do it.
Because nobody enforces it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Which is the reason why I don't think code enforcement should get a raise.
Mr. Carrington, I don't see the mayor here. I don't see anybody from code enforcement.
Yep, try to reach out, and we're running a little ahead of schedule. The mayor wasn't scheduled until 10.
But she's supposed to be at all these hearings anyway, so I don't understand. So I'm confused.
Right.
But if it's
yesterday she couldn't get in. She didn't have the link, and I had to remind her to look at the link for 5 o'clock.
Okay. But anyway,
So,
what's the pleasure
President,
of this body? Because I don't see any of the people from any of the other hearings here.
I'm going to say this to Mr. President. I'm not coming back on here anymore today. That's for sure. I'm done today.
Contacting Vern now.
Yeah, and they weren't scheduled till 11. I can reach out to that team.
I thought that's what you guys were doing while we were having this discussion. I'm so confused.
I'm listening to you guys. I got myself.
I'm not talking about you, Councilwoman Peter. I'm talking about the administration.
I had to get coffee, buddy.
So.
One thing we have learned from the budget meeting, Mr. President, in the last week that we've been having, some run short, some run fast. You never know what's going to happen. You got to make yourself kind of available a little bit.
Well, they should be available during work time anyway. That's where I'm at.
I agree with you. Code enforcement giving us a break.
Scheduling and
what I'm saying to you is the people that's presenting from code enforcement is not on the streets. So
right.
that's what I'm.
That's why
I didn't hear that.
So.
I'm sorry.
Mr. President, one other thing I want to bring to you. So since the council had the public hearing on the budget, if you so choose to, you can approve the tax rates. I know there's been like some issues in the past. The administration has said that the tax bills have been delayed with going out. But since you had the public hearing, if you want to approve just the tax rates, you can do that on Tuesday so they can send those.
I understand, and we'll ask the council if they want to do that on Tuesday. I prefer not to send anything out until we get everything together, because you don't want to levy taxes and then they don't have general service. But that's just my personal opinion, Mr. Clerk. But
Aren't
I
the
will bring it
tax
up.
rates for the millages?
What I'm saying to you is one of the things is if you looked at that youth millage budget, we have to decide if we're going to levy the whole thing or just a portion or whatever. And
Right.
what they presented to us was less than stellar, is what I will say. I don't want to argue it, but I will have a conversation with you, Councilwoman
Okay,
Waterman,
thank you.
just in general, because when we approve the tax rate, we also approve all the fees for services that you were just talking about.
Okay.
So to that point, we certainly, we're certainly in agreement and support with the clerk's suggestion, and I will commit to doing anything that needs to get done as it relates to those millage rates. As you guys know, we are on a specific timeline in terms of getting the tax bills out in a timely fashion, and we don't want to, from the city's perspective, do anything that would jeopardize that. So anything that's required, I did note the comment about the fees, and we certainly can do a review of that and update those fees as necessary. But we certainly want to stay on track with the millage rates, and that was really the express purpose for splitting those so that we could address any issues or concerns that were related to that. And again, I'm certainly ready and willing to do that.
Mr. Carrington, what is the deadline for the tax papers when you're going to mail them out?
We need to get those millage rates set by the 9th.
9th of this month?
The 9th of June, correct. All that stuff has to get the stuff has to get loaded up. We have to get it to the printer. It has to be processed. Has to go through the county assessor. So there's several days and weeks of lead time with getting that information completed and processed and getting the bills out and mailed.
Mr. Carrington?
Yeah, go ahead, Councilwoman Petula, then Attorney Sharp.
Mr. Carrington, are you realizing that it takes 3 weeks just for somebody to get a piece of mail from Bloomfield yesterday?
Yeah, I did not factor that in. I'm just going off of the kind of the timeline that's been communicated to me, with our treasurer and with the kind of the processing time that we need on our end. We don't have obviously we don't have a full ability, or we don't have an ability to control the timing of the mail, but we're just trying to manage things that we have the ability to have some control over.
Okay, I think we shouldn't leave leeway in there because we do know that the mail is running slow.
Understood.
And I know yesterday the taxpayer or the accountant mailed something 3 weeks ago and it was just received.
We also have to keep in mind that we did allow, Mr. President, we no longer have until July 31st for that property tax. They don't incur any penalties on it, which is good. They got 60 days, so keep that in mind. Even if they get the tax bill a little late, they got an extra another month to pay the bill.
I think the issue is I think the county sends it out or something like that. So I think that was the conversation that we had with the deputy mayor about 3 years ago. But yeah, I'm not trying to debate that. So we'll talk about it Tuesday at the council meeting. I still don't see anybody from code enforcement or the law firm. So what's the pleasure of the council?
So Mr. President,
I'm sorry, Garland. Mr. Captain, who's doing the code enforcement? Who's going to present?
That's going to be Mr. Gustafson is the lead person on that, along with
Patrick.
I'm sorry?
Is it
Mike
Patrick?
With Mr. Brzezowski, correct.
Well, neither one are answering their cell phones or their office phones.
So,
I'm sorry. So, Mr. President, so I'm clear. You're going to cancel. It's a on the budget hearing schedule is a hearing that's set for, well, discussion that's set for tomorrow. So you're going to cancel that, and then
I think what we're going to do is move these people from today to tomorrow.
Oh,
So
no.
then,
Oh,
No,
No.
I ain't. I
They
got
miss
things
out.
to
They
do.
miss out. No.
There's a
No.
schedule that's planned. We got to follow the schedule. If they don't come in, they just don't come in. Because
I have an
got
appointment in Clawson.
okay, well that sounds
Okay.
good.
I think
We-
If I could just request a couple
we
minutes.
here and there now.
So I believe that the mayor wasn't scheduled today until to 10 a.m. But you do need to set the hearings for the week of the 14th. I just need to know what time so I can properly notice the meetings. And
Okay,
how
do
many
you guys
days
want-
you want to do it?
You go ahead, Attorney Sharp.
So here's my question. So, Mr. Carrington, I think you said that the tax information has to be obtained by the 9th. Is that what you said? June 9th?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so my question is, I mean, with that being said, obviously you want to try to get the tax information out. So is it that maybe council would still have the meeting tomorrow, but deal with the youth millage information and the information contained in the schedules as Councilwoman Waterman referenced, so that you can at least separate that, because you know that you're not going to be able to have the whole budget wrapped up by the 9th. So that's not going to happen.
No, that's impossible.
So while you have the date scheduled already for tomorrow, maybe you should, I'm just suggesting, if council is inclined, to deal with those issues so that you can have, even if you needed Tuesday to discuss it further, but at least you'll have a discussion. You can have a discussion about it tomorrow to try to get some.
I won't be here
to
because
resolve it.
they already said we were not meeting. So I've already made arrangements for another meeting tomorrow morning in Clawson.
Mr. President, all we need is a quorum.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that would be. I was thinking of the same thing, and just go ahead and deal with the millage. And so, you gotta understand, this is political season. You don't want to use it against everybody because we didn't get the tax thing up. So we should address the recreation and maybe discuss it, and we can be ready Tuesday, and then we can get that out. We don't have that on our back, because there's no way this budget's going to be done by no 9th or 10th of next week.
Absolutely.
And in the
not.
past, you separated it because it wasn't all resolved at the same time, just to ensure. Because remember, before the mayor threatened to put that information out, that you guys weren't trying to get the taxes out on time.
Oh, yeah.
So,
How do I remember? So if we got a quorum about it, Mr. President, let's tackle it. I mean, I don't know if Waterman can come or other members can come, and we can tackle it, because time is going. This month is going pretty fast already. It's the second already. I mean, time is rolling, and so
What time is that meeting tomorrow, Mr. Clerk?
10 a.m.
Okay. Yeah, I can be here tomorrow at 10. So. Okay.
So you're going to keep the meeting tomorrow. So then I just need to know the week of the 14th, what are the dates and times you want me to set?
Yeah, so let's have a meeting on the 15th. And if we can do 3 o'clock, if that works for everybody. I know it's a long day, but by the 15th, we can have a 3 o'clock meeting. And then if we take everything off the agenda for the 6 o'clock meeting, I think that will work. So we could kind of work from 3 to 6 and then just close out the regular council meeting.
It's fine with me.
Works for me.
It's okay with me. Mr. Clerk,
I'm sorry.
with that ordinance that we had you read last night, Does that have to have anything done to it next week?
Next week is the 8th, and you can, if the council so chooses, you can approve the ordinance because we'll have published the summary.
Okay, so you will already have it published. Mr. President, I would ask that we move on that ordinance next week before we close everything out.
Well, I'm sorry, I think the president was talking about the meeting on the 15th.
Oh, the 15th? Okay, I'm sorry. I forgot next week's only the 8th.
Yeah, next week is the formal meeting for the 8th. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying to you. The 15th would be a study session. So that's why I said we can make sure there's no new stuff on the agenda.
That's what I was saying. I made the mistake.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Well, the council would start at 3 on the 15th. And did you want to add another day in case everything doesn't get finished?
The 16th, Mr.
Okay.
Doyle.
In the morning, perhaps?
Yep.
What time, 9 or 10?
Not 9 o'clock after the council meeting. Let's do 10 o'clock on the 16th.
So then a special meeting on the 15th at 3, and then a special meeting on the 16th at 10 a.m.
Yes.
Okay. So you just need to vote on the existing motion.
Is there?
So
move support.
Okay, it's been moved by Peter, supported by Waterman. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I just have one question. I was writing notes here. I got to back up a little bit. June 14th, you got a budget hearing. That's still on?
You didn't schedule anything on the 14th.
We were saying the week of the 14th. We were saying the week.
Okay.
Which is actually the 15th that we're going to do it.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm with you. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Roll call.
Petula,
Yes.
Shramsky,
Yes.
Waterman,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Okay. 5 yeas, no nays.
Okay. What's the pleasure of this body? It's 9:57. Are we going to wait till 10 o'clock for the mayor, or we're going to adjourn this meeting?
Well, I think we waited 3 minutes.
I think we need to wait until the time that's assigned.
And then at 10:05, you can adjourn it.
There you go.
Well, they'll be here at 10:04 if you say 10:05. So I know they're listening.
Well, you know, she's going to come at 10:45 anyway.
I know they're listening. So
that's okay. She can listen. You and we all know she's 45 minutes late and calls herself on time.
Mr. Carrington, I don't think it's going to take an hour for the mayor's budget. So if you can call code enforcement again and planning to have them ready to go. All right, I'm going to take.
I still haven't found it.
Hey, Garland.
Yes.
The mayor, she's logging in now, so she is coming for the 10 a.m. schedule.
Looks like
Mr. President,
Patrick's here too.
yeah, I just called Matt Behrens and asked him to contact them. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Vern just got here too.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna start with code enforcement, and then when the mayor gets here, we'll have her afterwards. Go ahead, Mr. Gustafson.
Yes, good morning, Council President and City Council. Good to see you. Thank you very much for your time and effort. It's been a challenging year, obviously with the pandemic, but I would say that from planning and then also code enforcement, I'm trying to keep in mind the health and safety of our team and our residents that we deal with on a regular basis. It did cause us to pause and kind of regroup to this new normal that we all know about, but it did not knock us down. I would say the last year, particularly from planning standpoint, we have handled and dealt with approximately 400 development reviews and zoning permits, which has translated to roughly about, say, $35,000 in review fees, which right now we're on track this year into next. We're probably looking at doing that equally or actually better, probably another 25% increase of that number. So we're doing well. You have our budget in front of you, and be happy to answer any questions you may have from a planning side. Also, you have Patrick Brzezowski here in regards to code enforcement that can answer any of your questions that you may have in regards to staffing or some of the line item budgets that we're more happy to ask.
Okay, thank you. Who has questions?
I do, Mr. President.
Okay, go ahead, Councilwoman Waterman.
Thank you, sir. Hi, Mr. Gustafson. Hi, Patrick.
Oh.
Okay,
Hello.
let's go to page 21 of 67, please.
I don't have page numbers on the report that I have.
Oh, you got the other book?
I don't have a book. I have just the sheets that relates to the Division of Planning, Department 721.
Okay, let's go. 101 721 702 000.
Okay.
Got that?
Salary and wages, yes.
Yes, sir. Okay, please tell me how many people that encompasses.
Right now, we have myself as planning manager, Donovan Smith, that be our city planner that you all know. And third would be our customer service representative, Carla Katie, who started on April 12th. Great lady with experience, former resident of Pontiac, and has worked both in the public sector and also private sector.
Okay. Go down up under the 101 721 702 009. Why are we going from $1,700 to $50,000?
It was kind of projected, that activity, but there was quite a bit of work done after that this report was completed, which was actually from April 30th of 2021. So that amount will probably be reduced. Right now, from a planning perspective, I am reviewing the or the provisioning centers outside the overlay district. And I have, after that is done, I have Walton Boulevard to do. Patrick is in the process of reviewing the last bundle of provisioning centers related to Walton Boulevard. So I would say that probably dollar amount could be adjusted.
Okay. Explain to me 101-721-818-000 other professional services. And why do you still have code and up above that 809-001 for COVID-19 expenses?
If I could, just on the COVID, Vernon, you can explain the other part. Councilwoman Waterman, we have set up some categories. We have set up a COVID general ledger account in certain departments, and it's expressly for purposes of tracking these costs. As we continue to get certain monies, we find it's important and helpful for us to be able to track those costs. So it's more of a finance department designation of how we're tracking costs as opposed to an expenditure that the department is directing. So it's again, really us trying to make sure we're able to track those costs, mainly because some of those costs are being able to be recovered or applied against monies that we receive in the form of certain grants or allotments from the state and federal governments.
I still have a question about that, but okay, I hear your explanation, but I have some questions about that. Okay, Mr. Guston, go on with the other professional services, please.
Sure, that has, for the last several years that I've been here, that line item has been there. And what we utilize it for is for our scribe that provides our minutes for all of my boards and commission, planning commission, zoning board of appeals, and the historic district commission.
Okay. Okay, let's go over to 101-733-702-000 salary and wages. Who does that reflect upon?
Currently, that reflects upon 6 code enforcement staff members that are here with us, and we do have 1 open position. So total, that would be for 7 staff members.
So you have 1 vacant?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Let me see here. Okay. Let's go down to 101-733-818-000 again for other professional services, and that is a very big increase.
Yes. So since we've been here, we've been utilizing that line item for nuisance abatement activity, essentially. And as you recall, last year, the council humbly increased it for us to continue our efforts. We had asked an additional 50,000 so that we could incorporate snow removal as a program to our nuisance abatement function, if you will. So that would be, in total, that would be a combination of physical property abatements plus snow removal in the winter season.
So, Councilwoman,
you said physical property and snow removal, you said?
Correct.
Okay. Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yes, also, Patrick, in that line also inclusive of the anti-dumping campaign, which you're going to be introducing at council on next week. We, like the council, is very concerned about the dumping, and we have gone to a full approach about how to make this a full campaign. And Patrick has been charged with bringing that to you, and that will also, I think there's some items in that anti-dumping campaign, which is kind of multifaceted. Is that correct, Patrick?
Correct, yes.
So, Mr. Carrington, this is what I'm talking about when we talk about a line item budget. if there are nuisance abatements, then there should be a separate line that says other professional services / nuisance abatement or whatever it is, so we can know that detail is important. So I'm glad that you guys are putting in these programs, but these programs need to be accounted for. So next year, when the new council looks at the budget, they can say that nuisance abatement worked and this is how much we spent on it or increased it or whatever. Without that detail, we won't know. And so it's hard for the council to track, and our responsibility is to look over the budget and approve it.
Okay.
To you, Councilwoman Waterman.
Certainly
One
understand.
last, go ahead, Mr.
I certainly understand the concern. It's really, we just try and balance having a manageable number of general ledger accounts. And so we don't always, and we can't really always, from a practical standpoint, create a general ledger account for each and every expenditure. So we, again, we try and balance that level of, with appropriate level of transparency with the manageable number. But I certainly understand and hear your comment.
Last, Mr. President, but you know what you're saying that, Mr. Carrington, I do know that maybe somewhere in the book, if you don't have it as a line item, you could have it in the front stating that this account is going to be specifically doing these various things, because I do know that some people's budgets do that. So we can have a clear understanding. And like I said, President Williams and myself are gone. Our other colleagues will be here, but you might have some new people in here that don't understand a budget. So we need to make it as simple as possible. But let's go to 101-733-818-006. When you were talking about in the one, what is this, mowing services?
Yes. So that's essentially cut private property lawn in the case where it's egregious and the property owners do not comply. So we do, in this case, have a separate line item. This would be considered an abatement service as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and okay, when you put that in there, and then you have to cut private lines, you bill them, correct? And where would that money show up in our revenue? Where does that money show up?
Yes, and we do. Mr. Carrington, I believe, would be better suited to answer that revenue question. I believe it goes into the general ledger, but.
And which fine or what we're referring to?
I'm just talking about, as you just stated, with the contractual mowing services, when we have to go and cut private property and then the city comes back and bill those people, where does that money go to?
It would be captured in one of the fines. I'll have to get that specific general ledger account.
Okay, Mr. President, if I'm gonna let it go unless some council members have some. If not, I'll come back. Thank you, Mr. President.
Teresa, are you there or did I get kicked out?
No, I'm still here. I was just waiting for the president to speak. I don't see him anymore.
I wonder if he got kicked out.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, I don't see him.
If I may, to the city council, in our preparation of the budget of our request for budget, I did ask for another planner, be part of our planning team. I feel strongly in regards to that would meet or exceed our expectations in regards to the services that we're providing to our community in regards to planning and development, and to meet our goals and certain objectives to be that responsive development or that division to meet with property owners and meet with developers and so forth, and really take a strong look at several initiatives aside from just development reviews that I mentioned early on in our conversation. Was the opportunity to really take a strong look in regards to long-term planning and zoning type of aspects in regards to zoning ordinance amendments, master plan updates, corridor redevelopment plans that we would like to initiate and move forward on. So I did request that as part of that in my request, but from the way I'm reading it, it did not make it onto the mayor's recommended budget. And understanding that, we would, projecting out that we could have, say, additional $40,000 to $45,000 that would come from development review fees, that and plus dollars coming from the general fund, it seems like it would be a smart investment.
Yeah, okay. I think that would probably be something for the new council to deal with, because but what are you talking about? What was the fee? How much were you how much did you think that would cost?
Yes, I had budgeted like a salary of say 70 and plus benefits.
Yes, Councilwoman, that was the discussion we had. We had to cut some things to do a balanced budget. And that was one of the things, because as we determined the feasibility, we were spending a lot more on outside engineering. And as we insourced additional staff, we decided it'd be more financially explainable to insource more engineering staff. So we had to make choices in order to balance the budget. And one of the choices we made was we preferred to do the engineering and servicing, which would save us a lot more money with all the projects we have going on than to bring in another planner at this time. But it just depends on how much over the budget we want to go to dip into the American Rescue Fund to hire additional staff. I do agree that all the departments could use extra staff. We had to make choices.
I think the president is gone, but
he just sent a message to the clerk to add him as a panelist.
Oh my goodness. Well, until he comes back, does any other council member have any questions or concerns?
No, and should we label him Mary? That's what happened to me last week. Sorry.
Hi, Mr. President, you're back.
Yes, thank you for holding down the meeting, Councilwoman Waterman. So does anybody else have any questions for code enforcement and planning?
No.
I do.
I do. I have a question.
Well, let me just ask this question, because I only got one real question, and this is for code enforcement. Last year, the city council and the mayor all agreed. We had finally a kumbaya moment to say that we needed a business code enforcement person. Has that happened?
Yes, we have designated Miss Cooper as our commercial enforcement specialist. Now, what has happened throughout the year is we've gained some employees and lost some. So she has worked to be a flex member for us, but she is serving in that role currently and has been for a little bit of time now. We do have that one open vacant position that we're trying to get filled, and that'll complete our structure with our staff right now.
Patrick, you and I talked last week about the problems that we have with an individual code enforcement officer. Has that change been made yet?
No.
So.
And when will it be?
Well, we're working to implement a change in the structure here. We anticipate that to be hopefully within a month.
Thank you. Mr. President, I'm sorry for interrupting if I cut you off.
Oh, no problem. Councilwoman Miller was next.
Yes. Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning.
First of all, and some people seem to think I'm critical, but I give people their kudos when they need it. You and your staff are always there for me. I appreciate what you do for my district. You really take care of the issues that I bring forward to you. So I want to put that out there. So, as far as I'm concerned, Patrick, you're doing a great job. What resources that you do have. My only concern is that we got several businesses, not just residents, that need to be hit and riding around every day, not cutting their grass, not adhering to the ordinances, and it's definitely needed because they get a pass on a lot of things other than the residents. The residents are true. If we're going to hit them, we got to hit the businesses too, because they're not taking care of their property, and that can't be so. My only question was, I see that you got services and maintenance to the vehicles. It went up really, really high. Is that because we purchased all those vehicles and it's costing that much to maintain them?
Well,
101-733-932-004.
004. I believe that is correct. And I would pull a list to see how much we've actually spent. I don't believe that we've spent nearly that amount over the past couple of years in maintenance. And I believe that's been put in there as a precautionary measure, more so.
Okay.
I mean, and we are talking about 5 vehicles. I mean, granted, say last year in regards to what we use, obviously with the pandemic, we probably weren't out there all 5.
That's what I was referring to, Vern. We wasn't really out there that much. That's what I was looking at.
It's not that we were out there. We were a lot of it. Yes, we were out there doing what we needed to do, but we were also back in the office, documenting, uploading the information, still sending out violations. Obviously, as you know, you receive twice a month, you receive the docket in regards to blight court, all of those tickets. I mean, that's, that's going along well. That came on, was active as June of last year. We're handling them virtually right now. It seems to be working. And it's getting a good response, and people are coming in to pay their fines in advance instead of going into the court system.
Okay. One question to you, Vern, and one to Patrick. I'll start with you first, Patrick. Yesterday, I received a call in my district over in Galloway in reference to the grass being 8 feet or tall over there. Was that taken care of? No one ever responded back to me. I wanted to find out was that issue rectified or what we need to do here, because they're not going to take that over in Galloway State.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know that we just sent batch 2 and 3 of the mowing list to our contractor as of yesterday.
Okay.
So I need to confirm if that's on there. I believe it was, and I can certainly tell you that that'll be taken care of soon.
I appreciate it, Patrick. I really do. To you, Vern, the training expense. So what training, or how often your guys get trained? This is part of it.
Yes, we're actively involved within the American Planning Association, or particularly the Michigan chapter of APA. And they do have some various training sessions, obviously, and conferences that we attend. We also encourage, particularly either the Planning Commission or the Zoning Board of Appeals that City Council appoints. There's training sessions. This year, obviously, have been all virtual, and we usually spend those dollars allowing our boards and commissions to be updated on current trends and best practices.
Is that for Patrick and everyone, your whole staff?
Yes. Well, Patrick does have his own training expense. Last line item looks about $3,600. And we had training expenses, which we're projecting out, say, of $900. And also we're actively involved. I'm on ICSC, which is the International Council of Shopping Centers, particularly on the private public sector group. I am state on that committee and lead that committee. And then also I'm on the state committee for ICSC to the state of Michigan.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I was going to just say, with code enforcement, we do belong to the Michigan Association of Code Enforcement Officers, and they do have a biannual training seminar along with monthly meetings that we have attended.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, it's good to know. Thank you, Vern and Patrick. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Peeler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Patrick and Vern, we have some concerns over how long it takes to notify somebody that they have to correct the matter and before the next notification can go out, because I understand it's about a month, correct?
No, it depends on the type of violation. Honestly, the standard policy we have is 2 weeks, unless it's an emergency, then we go out quicker. Tall grass, for instance, is 10 days.
What about the issue like we have on 8 Short?
Right. Well,
we're notifying him. We've notified him for 10 years.
Right.
Before it ended up in blight court.
Right. Well, in that case, he had received multiple 50th district tickets in the past. And then we instituted blight court, received his tickets. We have a combined joint effort with the 50th district court and our blight court to where we've sought and have won the motion to abate through court. So we do have a court order. So that coming very shortly here. It's been a long, arduous process, I know.
2 weeks since I got the text saying that we have the court order, and we're still waiting on it to happen. Right. What about 196 West Beverly?
We're still waiting on that order.
See, and these are things that have been ongoing in District 3 that have not been addressed as quick as they should have. So when will this be rectified, and why do we have to wait 2 weeks? And then another 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks, and another 2 weeks, up to 10 years with 8 Short.
Well, in both of those cases, they're pretty extreme examples. We had to get a court order in both cases, one due to the property owner threatening violence, and so it became a very serious situation. The other,
I understand that, and I can appreciate that, Patrick, but it should never been allowed to have gotten out of hand that far where it resulted in somebody threatening anybody. Had it been dealt with first off, had our code enforcement officers who have cars been riding around the neighborhoods and checking to see what was going on and addressed it then, we wouldn't be in the situation we are in now. Isn't that correct?
Well, yes and no. We did issue violations to him and tickets in the past. So I can tell you this year alone, we've completed 30 abatements throughout the city, and several of them in your district. So it's not like we're not making progress. Those 2 cases you bring up, I think are one of the more difficult ones we've had over the past couple of years. But we are making progress, and we're close to finally getting an order and getting those completed.
Well, I had a conversation with another candidate for another district, and there's dumping over there too that hasn't been addressed. So this is not just a District 3 issue. This is citywide, and we gave you guys cars so you could get out there and about. So you're not driving your own cars, you're driving city cars.
Correct.
But I still wonder how frequently you guys are out there when I keep having, in my own district, I call you guys, I tell you about an issue, I tell you about a fence that's going up both on Summit and on Monticello. And before I know it, the whole frame is put up, not just the poles, which I told you about in December on the one with Summit, but now they have the boards, or they have the fence chain link across. And that wasn't addressed.
That's the nature of the business that we do. We deal with unauthorized, unpermitted work every day. Last year alone, we filed 5,000 new enforcements, and we completed over 11,000 inspections. We are out there every day. We have vehicle mileage logs. We're doing the best we can, and we're prioritizing as things come up, and that I know, and we'll always commit to doing the best job we can.
I have a hard time believing when I call you in December and tell you that there are posts put in the ground on a vacant lot and then you turn around and do nothing, to my recollection, and those posts stay up. And then I come home in, let me see, this is June, so I come home in the first part of May, and we have chain link fence on a Saturday afternoon. 5 months later.
I understand.
Thank
In that
you.
instance, we did go out and we did talk with them. We did send letters. It did stop, and then unfortunately it resumed. And we are persisting with that.
No, you're not persistent with it, because they should have taken those poles out. They didn't have a permit to put the poles in. They should have been asked to take the poles out. They should have been made to take the poles out. But you let the poles stay. I'm done, Mr. President. I think I said enough.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Peatler. Patrick and Vern, I do have a question. One of the things that I've been talking about for years that we haven't implemented is, and I know you guys are able to track the complaints, but what is the cost for some tracking software so people can get a complaint ticket, and then when that ticket is dealt with or rectified, they would get some kind of notification? Because what happens is we have people call about the same issue, and I know it probably jams you down when you have 7 people call about one thing and you guys have already addressed it, or nobody calls about something and it never gets addressed, and we don't have a way to go in and kind of look at that. So for example, if there's a power outage with DTE, they can send out an email saying it was rectified or dealt with. What would be that cost, or is there any software that you've heard about at any of these meetings that you've attended that would make your jobs easier and make the citizens be able to kind of track those complaints?
If I may, Council President, as a matter of fact, I live in the city of Troy. And as a matter of fact, I was talking with the city manager, and they've just instituted a program in regards to complaints. So it is something that is managed. And so it could be a code enforcement complaint. It could be a police complaint. It could be a number of them, and you kind of pick and choose in regards to what division would go to. And then from there, and it tracks any updates would go into that type of a system. We can probably find out some more information. I'm sure there's other communities that are doing that too. And that was just a recent conversation that I ran into him about, and with the city manager there in Troy. So
I can give you an answer. I can also answer that for you, Council President. Yes, there are a number of software systems out there. One of them that I can give you a cost on, because I've actually costed it out, is something called Salesforce. And how expensive it is depends on how many different modules you pick up. But that's a very effective system that I have seen in other communities. I would love to have that here. Depending on the modules, it can cost anywhere from $12,000 to $25,000. So certainly I would like to add that on. As we maybe get into the appropriations from the American Rescue Act, because that probably would be covered under that. But we couldn't put it in order to balance the budget this time. But certainly I would be with you on that. We have a citizen's request for action, but it's kind of a cumbersome system, so our departments really don't use it. It was mainly brought in by DPW, but no system works if you're not going to use it, and DPW was not implementing it. So that's why that system really has not been effective.
Well, I would, Madam Mayor, I would like to see that reflected in this budget, especially for code enforcement and maybe planning, so they can do a pilot. And then when you guys get to the budget next year, you guys will be able to decide if it works or if you want to ramp up the number of modules you have. But I would like to see that as a line item, so at least you guys can get started with the program. And then if it's a different software that you need to use going forward, that would be great. But it's just mind blowing to me that we can have people complain and then they don't get a number or anything with that particular property, especially if they make a complaint on a vacant lot. How do they even look up what's been the remedy or whatever else is there. And I think it would be helpful, especially when Patrick makes his case that says that we've dealt with 5,000 violations, that the citizens can see that. And I think it would just make everybody's job easier. When we first got on council, when we had the first emergency manager, the city council had BSNA access, and we were able to get a report and look up if a property was dealt with. I'm not saying that the council needs to do that. I'm saying that there was an original tracking system, but we've been using basically the same software, just upgrades of that software for the last 12 years. And so if there's a better mousetrap, let's put it in the budget. Let's try it as a pilot. And then if it doesn't work, then you guys can get rid of it in the future. But I think that in 2021, especially with COVID and other things, it would be so much better for people to track, and maybe it would take down that call volume that we're having going into code enforcement and planning, if people can look and see where their complaint is. So that's just my thoughts on that. Councilwoman Shramsky.
Yeah, Mr. President, I totally agree with that, because as Dan Ringo told you, I report I have a very vocal and accurate citizenry over here. And sometimes I feel bad because I do look in BSNA first to see, if there is anything against it. But sometimes the wires get crossed, and maybe Patrick is already dealing with it, or Tammy's already dealing with it. So I do say in my emails, if this is already called to your attention, I'm sorry. But yeah, I think that would be very helpful, because my citizens do try and use that citizens request, and it sometimes, the departments are checking it, sometimes not. And I think that would be great if we could put that in this budget. I would really appreciate it. Okay, we'll look into that. Patrick, I'm going to give you the name of one that I have looked into, so you can get a cost for that, and we'll send that to council for their recommendations. Okay.
Great comments. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Gustafson or Patrick, Mr. Patrick? Okay, well, go ahead, Councilwoman Waterman.
I'm sorry, I'm done. I'm sorry. No, not him.
Okay, all right, we're going to move on to the mayor's budget. Thank you, Code Enforcement and Planning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Patrick, let me, I'll send you an email about that. Okay, so you can follow up on that. All right, mayor's budget, and we are here. You have those pages in front of you. Mr. Carrington, I'm going to let you do the overview of that budget.
Sorry about that. As you know, we're now ready to cover the mayor's department. We have put in a recommended budget that's in front of you right now. I do want to point out a couple of things. One is when you look at the year-to-date activity, it's really below what had been budgeted due to vacancy primarily tied to the deputy mayor. As you know, the administration is working to fill that role. So that's one of the reasons why the year-to-date activity is below below what was originally budgeted and appropriated for that particular category. There also is a request for an additional employee, a customer service representative in the mayor's office that we have in the recommended, which would add one full-time employee to the mayor's budget. And that again is reflected in the mayor's recommended budget, along with maintaining the existing positions that are currently in there. By and large, we are continuing to maintain the spending levels that have been incurred over the current fiscal year. One additional item that we did add in the both the requested and the recommended budget was some monies for the parks and neighborhood projects. included $50,000 in expenditures for that particular general ledger account. And that account is 101-171-808-000. And I did want to bring your attention to that. But I think for the most part, beyond those items, I think we're really looking at spending in terms of what was done in the current fiscal year in terms of the current spending levels that we have budgeted for the current fiscal year. We're seeking to keep those spending levels going into the next fiscal year. So I'll open it up and turn it over for any questions that council might have.
Mr. President?
Yep, go ahead, Councilwoman Morton.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm glad you spoke on that $50,000 because that was one of my questions and concerns about the parks and neighborhood projects there. But personnel services, 101-171-702-000. That's a big increase. And who are we speaking of?
So the increase is only for one additional position. Some of the spending increase compared to the current fiscal year is due to the vacancy with the deputy mayor. That that position, as you know, the mayor has been recruiting and looking to fill that position. So from a budgetary standpoint, we're not asking for much more than what was previously approved. We're only asking for one additional position. And that is personal.
Talking about $200,000 for one position?
I'm sorry?
I'm looking at, just round this off, you're talking about $200,000.
No, I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
45 to 44.
Could you say that again, please?
You went from 245 to 424.
No, this year we got budget 364. I'm not sure what
see, I'll have on my page 5 of 6.
Okay, let me just.
That's not what it's saying. So I guess I need to get that to know. And what positions are we talking about? The mayor, deputy mayor, and who else?
So we have the mayor, deputy mayor. There is, as I indicated, we have a requested addition for a customer service representative. There's an executive aide and an executive admin. Let me just make sure I got those titles correct. So we've got the mayor budgeted there, the deputy mayor, executive aide, executive secretary, and then the additional position of a customer service representative.
Okay.
Just again, I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
My book is, it's 5 of 67.
Yeah, and what number are you quoting, Councilwoman?
I'm quoting, it went from 2021 projected activities of 245,450 to 2021 mayor's budget of 424,750.
Yes, and as I indicated, that's the projected activity, and that's largely, that number is below what was budgeted. What was budgeted was 364,000, and again, the reason why that number is at 245 is due largely to the vacancy in the deputy mayor's role. So that activity is below budget. That's showing that a number that is below what was actually budgeted. So the budgeted number was 364, and the recommended amount was 424.
Budgeted recommended. Okay, one more thing I want. Okay, 2. You have in the mayor's budget 101-171 809-001, you also have COVID expenses in there.
Correct. And again, that is just us maintaining the accounting for those expenses that we can track and tie to COVID related expenses. You know, again, we have received monies previously, and we've recently received some monies that we think can be applied against expenses that can be tied directly to COVID. So we for purposes of being able to track those and transparently apply those against any grants or revenues that we receive specifically for that purpose is the reasoning for us having that category, that breakout category.
Okay. I'm good, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Karen.
Go ahead, Attorney Sharp.
I just have a question about that again. I guess I'm confused. I mean, I hear your justification for it, but it's interesting that some of these departments, they have the COVID expenses baked in, they have them booked, but yet they stop, and then some of them are still going on in the future. Like, so it's inconsistent to me, but it just to me doesn't. Again, I don't know how the logic behind how some departments have it and some departments don't have it. And then if they do have it, some of them stop with this year and don't go forward. And then some of them continue to go forward.
Yeah, no, and I understand your question, Counselor. You know, just keep in mind, we kind of, we being, you know, finance departments across the country, you know, this was kind of a category that we created on the fly to some extent during the most last fiscal year and largely for this current fiscal year. And so it's not an exact science at this point. But you know, again, there is some activity in there. We're not trying to capture all of the activity that's being done. But there's certain things that may be, you know, whether it's cost allocation items or things that are related to, you know, certain supplies or certain materials that are tied to COVID. That's really what's being reflected in there. But again, we you know, we certainly know that it's not a comprehensive or an exact you know, approach at this point, because again, it is kind of having to be done on the fly.
Mr. President, if I might come back to that, I guess that's the reason why I keep broaching that, and I understand what Attorney Sharp is saying too. I just don't understand the rationale. So there needs to be an in-depth response to us as it relates to that, because I'm just not getting it. I'm glad Attorney Sharp has emphasized that a little bit more, but that's why I keep asking about the COVID thing. It's just not with me.
I understand, Councilwoman Waterman. I think that it would be more understandable if they just prorated it across all departments, like they do insurance or computer fees or whatever. It seems that for different departments, they have different numbers for the COVID expense, where it should just be the same across the board, allocated evenly, and then they can use the justification on the last sheet of the budget to show this is how we use the grant money. That's what makes sense to me. But it seems like they're just baking in extra expenses or money to play with in different budgets in different departments.
And that's certainly not the case, but I certainly hear the concern. And we, Councilman Waterman, we certainly will take a look at that.
Thank you, sir.
And I guess to me, Council President, to your point, to me, it seems like it would make more sense if you got this pot. So this is extra, right? This is grant money. And so you allocate, I don't know, $5,000 to each department, $10,000 to each department, but to allocate 5 to 1 to stop, that's it. 25,000 ongoing for the next several years. I don't understand it. And I think, and I'm not trying to get into that issue with the Rescue Act, that money, but I think something needs to, before you embark on that, something really needs to be put in place where that is kind of singled out, because if it's going to be anything commingled with a budget like that, it will be totally confusing and a mess. Thank you.
Okay. Well, who else has questions?
May I also explain what Mr. Carrington said?
Go ahead.
Some of the problem was that the rules changed during this period. You know, this was, as he said, not only on the fly, was on the fly for the federal government and for the state government as well. And sometimes we were trying to capture certain things were reimbursable under different conditions. So sometimes they were just kind of allocating that so we could make it reimbursable. And so I understand that changed during the time, and most of those things that happened under the we just put under the executive office, because this is the office that was often implementing some of these changes, such as having a COVID administrator and having a COVID desk and having equipment for that. So this COVID year had some peculiarities. Some of these things will be carrying forward. As you see, we had to put in the plexiglass and other things like that will continue on. And that is also making signage and making sure that the policies changed. In fact, I just issued the termination of the state of emergency. So in place of that, we had to put in place a face mask policy. And all those things are being coordinated through the executive office. So that's where some of those expenses were centralized so that we could capture them and keep them memorialized so that we can capture reimbursement for those. So we want to get, we have maxed out the reimbursement. So we captured every penny we could. Okay.
So Mr. Carrington, again, if there should probably be a summary of that rationale, not only given to the council, but added to the budget book, as you have in the glossary for other things, so people can be able to track that going forward and the reasoning that you guys are doing what you're doing, because right now it just looks haphazard across the board. And so that might not be the intention, but that's what it looks like, especially when every department doesn't have that. If there's upgrades to all city facilities, somebody has to do COVID and planning or whatever that's there. My bigger question before I turn it over to my colleagues is, where do the employees that are manning the desk when you come into City Hall come from? What part of the budget are they in?
You know, we've had a because we haven't had a dedicated staff member for that, and we've also tried to balance out, as some of our facilities have been closed, we've tried to continue to keep folks employed. So it's been a mix of individuals that we've used to cover that, Council President.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because we have a youth millage that's dedicated to 21 and under. And so if we're using youth center employees to do it, to make sure that they are still on staff, which is a laudable goal, it needs to be reflected somewhere in the general fund so we can pay these people and split the time. I work for a C3 organization, which is nonpartisan. I also work for a C4 organization, and there's a delineation of my time 50-50 between those organizations. So at the end of the year, half of my salary comes from one, half of my salary comes from another. What I'm saying is, with this budget, I can't track any of that. And so if they're coming from a grant and it's not from the millage, then there needs to be a accounting of that. So we'll know going forward on what is actually needed. If you guys are planning on using a dedicated person to do that service, that needs to be listed also, because what it looks like to me is we have temporary people working in the city, and we need to know where that's coming from, especially if you're deploying them to other offices in the city. So if we're doing a budget and we think that the mayor's office has 10 people in it, and the mayor's office only has 5 people, but 5 of these are COVID people that are doing other things, then we need to know that as a council, and we need to be able to see it in the budget.
Yeah, and I understand your point, and we certainly, we do, as part of our regular accounting process, we do do kind of end of the year cost allocations and the like, between a number of different departments and a number of different funds. And so to the extent that would be in order and will be in order, it would be a part of our year-end accounting process, so that any resources that are utilized from any other funds or that are funded, particularly funded by millages, we do that as part of our wrap-up.
Right. But even more specifically, no, there are no youth rec employed workers who have been employed to work that COVID desk or be the COVID administrator. The person who we had assigned to work there mostly had asked to be taken off of the PIREC employee list. She's no longer on the PIREC employment staff list because she wanted to be moved. So because we didn't have a dedicated place in the budget for COVID administrator, we are using her in that position. Most of that work has been reimbursable through the COVID-19 reimbursable. So because she's just working a part-time, we've had to use other people just to fill in for lunch breaks and when she was sick or things like that. So that's come from a variety of different departments just to fill that in. So we wouldn't have to have another full-time person added to the staff roster. So we've been able to do that, create that position by kind of piecing it together. But no, nobody's on the PIREC list who has been working that desk.
Okay, just to follow up on that, Mr. Carrington, where is that position reflected in the budget, and what department is it under?
We currently do not have that in the budget. As you know, we have moved and the state of emergency is no longer in effect. It's my understanding that as of July 1st, based on state and federal guidance, we'll no longer have certain requirements. So I don't expect that current structure, and I did not budget for that, will go into next year. Additionally, we've also had some discussions about adding a uniformed officer from the sheriff's office down there. So, from a budgetary standpoint going into next fiscal year, I have not, budgeted around that or included that, just based on where my expectation as to where we'll be in regards to the pandemic and the rules and regulations that'll be enforced as of July 1.
Okay, so my last question on this subject is, there needs to be a place in the budget that reflects activity. So was that under other professional service, and what department did it come out of? So even though we get grant funds to administer whatever, it's got to be booked to a department. The clerk got a grant. It was all the payments were made out of the clerk's department. So where is that reflected in the budget for this year that was done? That's what I'm saying to you. Where is that employee or part-time? Where's that equivalent of employee at in this budget?
So right now we haven't, again, fully accounted for everything because these things were not budgeted on the front end. We have received monies that are budgeted under the revenues. We have other federal grants, and to the extent that we have to provide any other departments with reimbursements, we'll do that as part of our year-end process.
What I'm saying to you, Mr. Carrington, is that person is getting paid currently, right? Who is their direct supervisor?
That's been done out of human resources, and I've been overseeing that person.
Okay, so in the human resource budget, it should reflect a position, even if that position is not going forward. Does that make sense to you?
I certainly follow what you're saying. I just think
what I'm saying is, right now we have a general fund budget, right?
Yes.
If you're paying for employees out of human resources, there should be that portion of salary or salaries that has been paid, either other professional services or other, out of human resources, and then reimbursed from the COVID expense. What I'm saying is, if I go to the human resource part of the budget, is that reflected there?
It was not part. It was not part of what was originally adopted in the budget. So to the extent that we would need to account for that, the activity that has occurred during the fiscal year, I'm saying that would be part of our year-end process.
Right, but it should be reflected in your projected activity that you've given us, because certain funds have already been expended, and that should be booked in the human resources if that's the case. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we have the projected activity through the end of April. There's been people working the desk since COVID started or City Hall was opened back up. There should be a tracking in human resources for every check that they got once they moved from whatever position they were in youth rec, from human resources, to say that this is a human resource employee and this is what they're doing, in order to make that viable. Now, if you're telling me that you moved their job position from youth rec to something else and we're still paying them out of the youth rec, then that needs to be accounted for, and then youth rec needs to be reimbursed out of the COVID expense. And I don't even know how we do that. What I'm saying is, for tracking purposes, everybody that works for the city should have a supervisor. Some of those supervisors being the mayor, and it should be able to be easily tracked. We shouldn't have any employees, part-time or otherwise, that are working without a department, and that department needs to reflect that they've been working.
Okay, let me help Mr. Carrington, and let me suggest, Aaron, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but yes, the COVID and a lot of the personnel-related COVID activities have been guided by the HR department, as rightfully they should. They're the ones that have been setting the employee standards, have been watching the guidelines that have come down from the federal government and CDC and all of that. So in the absence of an HR manager, this person is effectively working under the finance department, okay? So because, and you're gonna bring a budget amendment to council, right, Aaron? And maybe this is one of the things we put in that budget amendment, because COVID was not anticipated when we made this budget back in July 1st of 2000, in 2019. So that's something that they're going to bring to you, a budget amendment for all those things that we've had to accommodate for COVID and some other things in terms of also infrastructure repairs that will carry over to a second year. So when I understand, finance going to do a major budget amendment, put all those in at one time, and this can be one of the things that you do, because it was not in the COVID-19 and the pandemic. What is in the budget when we figured this out some time ago?
Council President.
Yes, go ahead, Attorney Sharp.
I'm just going to say I'm a little bit more confused than I was before. I understood the logic, but I heard Mr. Carrington also say that going forward, they weren't going to budget for certain things because the end of the emergency and the orders and so forth. And again, with that, so why would you budget going forward in certain departments with the COVID money? And again, I get your point, and I guess that's where I am with this, in terms of a layperson should be able to look at your budget and be able to understand how certain positions are paid, how certain monies were allocated. As it relates to this COVID grant money, again, I hear you, Mr. Carrington, when you say at the end of the year you guys will reconcile, but that's not helping, again, with the whole transparency of the budget. And again, I'm not alleging anything. I'm just saying it's not really clear as to how certain individuals are paid, certain things in terms of COVID expenses. And to me, it would only make sense if it would have been maybe even just a whole COVID, just something allocated to COVID to show all the expenses that came out of COVID, all of the employees that were paid out of COVID. Because certainly it sounds like some of the employees, the administrator for one, was probably paid with some COVID dollars. Well, that's not reflective. The council president's question is, how are they being paid? What department are they under? And to the point about the HR, well, the HR manager, HR department, the individuals left in April. That was just 2 months ago. That wasn't a whole year ago. So it's just not clear whatsoever. And I think you're just going to have a hard time trying to explain. Yes, it makes logical sense in terms of what you're saying, but it doesn't make sense when I'm looking at it. And I just still have these questions, and I hear the rationale behind it, and it's just kind of inconsistent to me. Thank you.
Sure. And let me just say, in terms of next fiscal year, I was speaking directly to the fact of why there's not a position in the city budget. That was again, the rationale for me in terms of why I did not include or budget around that position. And also keep in mind, some of what our responsibility is as a finance department is to try and have the financial activity reflect what's actually happening operationally. And we don't always have the benefit of knowing, as things come up, as as things are we incurring expenses that are just not planned or expected, and then we try and budget and include around that, budget around that activity. And sometimes that's done during the fiscal year, sometimes that's done as a budget amendment, or sometimes it's done as a part of the year-end process, so that we make sure that the expenses are being placed into the right category, whether it's planned or unplanned. And that's really what I was trying to speak to, that oftentimes there may be a disconnect between operations and finance that gets resolved at some point in the fiscal year or at the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up from my other colleagues. I'm just confused in the fact that we passed a line item budget last year, and everything that's over $10,000 should be coming to the council for approval before it's spent. If you have an employee that you're paying through a grant or whatever, there needs to be council approval on spending that money, and it needs to be accounted for not only in the ledger, but it needs to be reflected in the department. And so for that not to be in a department or being able to reflect that salary and wage for that person up to this point is problematic for me. I should be able to look at the employee sheet and know part-time, full-time, temporary, all that's been paid in the city of Pontiac. And so to the extent that that is not happening, that gives me great pause, but I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues for questions. Anybody else have a question for the mayor's budget? Okay, we're going to move on to Jamarco Mullins' budget. Madam Mayor.
Okay. We are ready for that. And I can't see who the panelists are, so I don't know who is in the waiting room to present for. I assume it is Attorney Chubb.
He's not in the waiting room. So who we have in the waiting room right now is in the attendee room is Felicia Rutledge, Lynette Phillips, Michelle Lewis, and somebody by the name of Plant Marine.
Okay, Michelle Lewis should be let in, and Moran should be let in.
Let me see if I can contact Attorney Chubb. He was scheduled.
Okay, but in terms of the panelists, Michelle Lewis and Pat Moran should be let in because they will be able to speak.
I think Michelle
as well.
Speak to it. We can get Michelle.
Okay.
Yeah.
You may want to start, Darren. Don't worry about doing that. Let me do that. You go ahead and start the outline of the budget. You and Michelle, and let's hear from Plant Moran. Michelle, is that Irwin?
I think Michelle's the one.
Irwin, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Also, he should be here. In fact, let them in as panelists, please, because they will speak to this.
They're here, so please go ahead.
All right, Darren.
Yeah, so we have in front of you the attorney department 266, which is where we have our city attorney. We've put in a number of items to cover the projected amounts for next fiscal year, for fiscal year 2022, namely for you see legal services in the amount of $150,000. And then we also have prosecutions in the amount of $300,000. Those are the two largest line items. We also have a number of other expenditures included in the category, included in this department, and we are asking for a total recommended amount of $660,000. Understanding, the nature of legal services, we can't always project out that activity as certain activity arises as we have to, expend monies and time and resources on certain activities. We have to do that if those situations arise. But these are the amounts in the breakdown that we have put forth in the mayor's recommended budget for next fiscal year.
Okay, we're going to open it up for questions. Councilwoman Waterman.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. 101-266-81800. Other professional services, $95,000. Who and what is this?
That's going to be some of the other legal counsels that we've had to have had retained and paid during the current fiscal year. I don't have an itemized breakdown of that, but that's where we capture essentially any other legal services that the city has to pay. As you know, Councilwoman, we've had the retiree health care that the city has been working with. We've been working with Attorney Samantha Kopaz, who's been the city's legal representative. And so some of her, all of her costs would be captured in there. But
I do understand that, but there was something when I already spoke about that, and I saw where her money was coming from in another department, and I have to find that because I remember seeing that. So, but I will write that down as well. I need to know where where Matt Gibbs is being paid from.
Okay, I will get that amount. It would likely come out of, it should be in that category there. As I said, we generally capture any legal services outside of the city attorney, but I'll have to verify that information for you.
Okay, well then we have two accounts here at the top, 101-266-804-018 and 266-804-021 for the law firm, and that's over $450,000. And I think last year when I asked that question, they told me that's where he was being paid from. So if I do that 450 plus 95,000, I want a total breakdown of who's being paid out of those three accounts.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. President, thank you very much. That's all I needed to know.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have questions? Okay, well, I'm waiting on my colleagues to get questions. Madam Mayor, have you considered bringing services in-house? This cost has been absorbing it on the city over the years, and I'm just wondering if that's part of your planning for next year's budget, or are you planning on continuing with the company that we have? You're muted, Madam Mayor.
That's another feasibility study I want to do, particularly as we're winding down on some of the legal matters that we inherited from the emergency manager. And I speak particularly of the Phoenix Center matter and the retiree health matter. Those are things that Marco Mullins was pivotal in, and so it's served the city's best benefit to start all over again, new bargaining parties on those things. So that was one of the particular reasons I carried forth Gianmarco Mullins. In addition to the fact that we have a wide range of different kinds of municipal issues to cover, so we needed the kind of expertise that a wider bench firm could provide. In the days in which we had, 2 or 3 attorneys on staff as part of the legal department, they had to farm out a lot of the expertise kinds of things. Whereas being able to have that in a firm, we are able to negotiate rates to bring us lower than the rates we would have if we were bring all that out to experts at the rate of, you heard one, $400 an hour, $600 an hour, really astronomical. So periodically we do a feasibility, and that's also what I plan to do as we wind down on these litigation matters that have been pending over that we need to have consistency in as we wind down and get those resolutions.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. My other question is if we can go to 101-270-702-000. Mr. Carrington.
Say it again, Mr. President.
Salaries and wages, the first line under personnel services, under attorney.
Can you give me that general ledger account again?
Maybe this is 101-270-702-000.
Mr. President, I think that's the personnel department.
Oh, okay, good.
That's personnel. That's we had dealt with it. Yeah.
So also, Mr. Carrington, Jamarco Mullins and legal services are charged across the city. What is the total in legal that is in this budget?
I will have to get that number. The request.
Okay, because what
Councilman Waterman made in terms of the activity, I'll also include what's been budgeted for the fiscal year across the various departments.
Yeah. So what
some of those costs out, as you know.
Yeah, what I'm saying to you is right now, this current budget coming up that the mayor is recommending has $660,000 in there for total legal fees. I want to know if the cost out per department adds up to that 660, or is these additional monies that the city is paying for those services when it comes up. Because I know if you look at what we recommended from last year to what is being budgeted this year, is much different. And so just want to put that in perspective. And so also want to know, with that being said, I think that's a good start, and then I can go from there. But I think that is partially there. I know that the settlement payments are taken out, which is $700,000, but it seems like the cost for legal is still at the same, and there's really no decrease, especially with, as the mayor said, the Phoenix Center being gone, the retirees being gone. There's what?
I was going to say the retirees are not gone. We're still working on that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the heavy lifting part is when the city was fighting against CPRA to come up with a settlement. That settlement has happened. Now you guys are working on the logistics of how to get them their money, but it's much different than it was initially when we had not only the police and fire VIBA lawsuits, but some other things that we don't currently have. So I'm just trying to figure out why that cost is staying the same and that projected activity being at the same level that it's been at. So I just need to know what that looks like, and maybe there's something that I don't know about that they're working on legally that needs to be accounted for the $660,000.
Mr. President, if you just look at that, if you just do what you got the 545, and then if you put the 50 or 75 we have in our budget, that's over the 660 right there. And so that's extra.
What I'm saying, what I'm saying to you, but I just need the finance director to just tell me how much the legal is in total, because I don't have the time to go through every department and add it up with my little Rubik's Cube, trying to figure it out. So if they can just give us that, so we'll just know how much we're paying in these services, because last year we discovered that it was some hidden fees and some departments that still accounted for the legal services. And so we just need to know what that is, because right now they only have these 10 line items, and I don't think that accounts for everything that they do or everything that they charge us for.
So let me understand. Do you understand the question, Darren, so that you know how to go about answering it? So I think you say that there's some legal charges, such as the payments we had to pay to the settlement payments that we paid to.
No, not at all. Not at
No.
all, Madam Mayor. What I'm asking you, what I asked Mr. Carrington was two different things. The first question was, does this 660 encompass everything that is in the budget for legal services that's been counted in each department, or is that some additional in each department that's there, as Councilwoman Waterman just spoke to, with what they're charging us as City Council for Jamarco Mullins in the projected budget going forward? So that was the first question. And then the second question was, what is the total for all legal services in the city of Pontiac going forward for this next fiscal year? So I'm not trying to go back and discuss what was in the $1.3 million from last year that's booked on this page. The question is, how much do we pay in legal, or how much are we projected to pay through this budget? So those are the questions that I have.
Okay. All right. I understand. You understand it, Mr. Carrington?
I do. Yes.
Okay, great. Good.
Yeah, does anybody else have questions? Okay, I don't see any questions. Do we have any other departments, Mr. Clerk?
That was the, I believe the last one. Mr. President. Yep, you covered all the departments.
Okay, well, we're going to adjourn this
Mr.
meeting.
Chair, may I ask a question? May I ask a question? Okay.
Hold on, Councilwoman Sharamsky, and then
I
Madam Mayor.
just wanted to make absolutely sure. So we're meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Yes.
to discuss the millage rate. Is that what we had decided?
Yes, and making sure that the ordinance that Councilwoman, the fee that Councilwoman Waterman wanted added to the fee schedule is there. Those are the two questions.
Okay.
So is that an open meeting? Is that posted?
It was already posted as a budget meeting. Yes.
For January the 3rd. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
June the 3rd. June the 3rd.
June the 3rd.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And also my question, Council President, was what is the council's after this? We have had the scheduled budget hearings, and then tomorrow, ending with tomorrow. So after that, are there any other?
Yeah, we already discussed that. We have a meeting on the 14th at 3 p.m.
15th. June 15th.
June 15th at 3 p.m. And Mr. Carrington was on, so he can kind of give you a recap on all of that. We discussed that for about 30 minutes on what we were going to detail on the 3rd. On the 15th at 3 p.m. So, okay. Did that answer your question, Madam Mayor?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. We're going to adjourn this meeting at 11:23.